Many characters in fighting games just figured out how to fight on their own. Others, on the other hand, were a bit luckier and had someone teach them useful moves, tricks and techniques. Although the word lucky may not apply on all these pupils. It was thanks to these martial arts masters that a lot of fighters were able to be part of the KOF's roster in the first place. It's true that many entries of this list didn't have the status of a master from the beginning, but thanks to their character development, they gained enough experience and started having their own disciples. One important question is, what defines a master? The way I see it, as long as the character in question had at least one pupil, they are a valid entry. And that's pretty much it. With that out of the way, here's the top 10 masters in the King of Fighters series. Kyokugen had won many KOF tournaments, fought and defeated mythical beings, but he could never finish high school. It's ironic how a dropout like him can still be considered a master. It's mostly thanks to his pupil, Shingo, that he found a place in this list. Since he saw him on TV, Shingo became obsessed with Kyo's ability of casting flames. When he learned that they go to the same high school, he couldn't believe his luck. Shingo started pestering Kyo every day, begging him to teach him how to fight and how to control fire. Kyo ended up submitting to Shingo's relentless requests and accepted to become his master in exchange of free meals. Being the jerk that he is, Kyo forgot to mention that pyrokinetic capabilities are hereditary and that Shingo will never be able to manipulate flames anytime soon. But regardless, he taught him how to execute most of his moves. Though they lack the finesse and the fire element, Shingo's attacks are very powerful thanks to his sheer raw strength. In many cases, they can be even stronger than Kyo's. It's true that he is far from being a good teacher, but it is thanks to Kyo that the series gained an endearing fighter that managed to become a fan favorite to this day. It takes a lot of righteousness and virtue to adopt the son of your sworn enemy, raise him like he's your own, and train him to become a badass fighter. That's exactly what Terry Bogard did with Rock after he defeated the villainous Geese Howard. It's not certain what pushed Terry to make that decision. Maybe he felt guilty for the death of Rock's father, or just didn't want him to grow up alone. In any case, Terry was a great big brother figure. He taught the young man many of his famous moves, like the rising tackle and the power dunk, which Rock tweaked a little to better fit his own style. Terry was also a good basketball teacher to Rock. After all, many of his techniques come from that sport. But the most important thing that Rock learned from Terry is his goodness and kind-heartedness. But being the son of the crime boss Geese, Rock has a dark side in him, which he struggled to maintain under control until he met his uncle Kane and joined him. Yet despite that, Terry still believes in his pupil and has faith that he'll come back to the right path on his own. The latest character to make a debut in KOF, Gang-il is the Taekwondo master of Kim and Jun. Interestingly, Taekwondo is the only thing in common between him and his students, because personality-wise, the old champion is the complete opposite compared to Kim. Easygoing, smug, and womanizer to boot, Gang-il spends his time traveling the world and attending to many competitions as the chairman of the World Taekwondo Federation. He decided to enter KOF 14 with his new lover Luong and his student Kim, who was extremely unhappy with his master's sudden return. The serious and stony Kim can't stand Gang-il's carefree attitude, but there is nothing he could do about it. Despite becoming a renowned master himself, Kim is still afraid of his master and would never dare stand up to him. In terms of fighting capabilities, Gang-il can perform pretty much all of Kim's signature moves. It's safe to assume that he is the origin of these techniques. Though he's slower than his student, he is also a lot stronger and he hits very hard. With a master like Gang-il, just how did Kim turn out the way he is? He is the only person on earth who can make Kim sweat in fear, and just for that, this guy deserves a comeback in future games. Like father, like son as they say, Saishu Kusanagi is the father of the series' main protagonist Kyo and also the head of the Kusanagi clan. The shortest way to describe Saishu, he is Kyo but older. Also, it's not sure if he finished high school either. Kyo inherited a lot of things from his father, the Kusanagi flame, the look, the strength, and also the condescending attitude. He can be quite cocky during fights. But one thing Saishu was good at is raising his son to be a fearsome fighter and the worthy heir of the Kusanagi clan. As a master, he was pretty strict and unforgiving with Kyo, who he submitted to a harsh training since his young age. He had also took Kyo's biggest fan, Shingo, as a pupil for some time and trained him to become a serious rival for his son. But of course, he could never teach him how to cast flame either. Despite his somewhat goofy persona, Saishu is a proud and honorable fighter who takes his responsibility towards his clan very seriously. When Rugal entered the scene, Saishu was the first to challenge the arm dealer in an attempt to stop him. Currently, he sees Kyo more like a rival than a student, considering how far the latter had progressed. And although he may seem annoyed by that, we all know that he must be proud of his son deep inside. During a mission in South America, Haydn and his men stumbled upon a lost and amnesic young girl. He saw in her the daughter that he had recently lost. He took her under his wing and gave her his name. In no time, Leona became a vital member of the Ikari Warriors mercenaries. Haydn raised her like his own daughter and trained her in the use of firearms and military weapons. He even taught her his own secret assassination fighting style, something that he had never done before. Thanks to him, she became the fearsome warrior that we know and earned her nickname the Silent Soldier. Her fighting style, although very similar to Haydn's, has many differences that fit her better. She is a lot faster and more agile than her adoptive father, but she lacks long-ranged moves, with the exception of her earring bombs. Leona is a very stoic person. She always calls Haydn commander and never dad or father. This is most likely out of respect and not because she is cold or uncaring. Haydn is certainly the best father figure she could have, as much as she is the best daughter for him. Here's another quote-unquote young master. I mean, Ryo Sakazaki is just 64 years old according to the Art of Fighting timeline, no big deal. The Invincible Dragon, as he is nicknamed, was the first to win a King of Fighters tournament. Thanks to that, his dojo became pretty famous and applicants from all parts of the world scrambled their way to enlist in it. Among them was Marco Rodriguez or Kushnut Bat, who became Ryo's most devoted disciple. Ryo follows a traditional side of the Kyokugen Ryu karate. His serious and firm character make him a competent master and a worthy successor of his father's legacy. Even though he can be old-fashioned sometimes, Ryo won't hesitate in soliciting assistance from his friends to help him train his students, even if the said friends practice a totally different martial art. As long as that would benefit his students, he won't mind it. Or maybe he just wants a pretext to hang out more with King. That being said, he is not the best karate master in the Art of Fighting band. He just doesn't stand a chance against another obvious figure, but more on that in a minute. This entry conforms more to the stereotype of the martial arts master in all media in general, but more so in fighting games. Shin Gentei is the silly old man who looks like he'll collapse at any moment from old age, but in reality hides a terrifying strength gathered from years of experience. The master of Athena and Kensu fights using Kung Fu. He taught his students many techniques belonging to that discipline and trained them how to properly mix Kung Fu with their own psychic powers in their fighting style, even if he himself doesn't have any psychic abilities. However, he does have a far more destructive power than the two pupils: alcohol. Shin is a drunkard who's rarely been seen sober. Maybe that's the reason why he invented his own style of Kung Fu that integrates his habit effectively in combat. The Drunken Fist makes Chin a tough opponent to face. His moves are unpredictable, and the alcohol he drinks during combat serves as a catalyst to breathe fire. He even uses the bottle as mid-ranged projectiles. Despite the appearances, Chin is a lot wiser than he looks. He cares about the well-being of his students, and the fact that he didn't teach them the Drunken Fist style is commendable. That would ruin Athena's idol career, I imagine. Back to the Art of Fighting team. As mentioned earlier, Ryo is not the only master in that band. His strength, skill, and even his masterhood were all achieved thanks to his father, the original master of the Art of Fighting team and the creator of the Kyokugen Karate, Takuma Sakazaki. Since he trained Ryo, Robert, and Yuri, Takuma's moves are the same as his students for the most part. No surprise here. He's the one who taught them how to execute such techniques in the first place. But even with that, Takuma has his exclusive moves, implying that he still tries to surpass himself on his own, even with his relatively advanced age. His invisible Kyokugen are the best example. In addition, Takuma is the only KOF character who can shoot Kamehameha, a super destructive version of the Hau Shokuken as seen in the ending of 2000. However, unlike Robert, Yuri, or especially Ryo, he doesn't have uppercuts, not when he is in his normal form anyway. Much like Saishu, he serves most of the time as the comedic relief of the team with his wacky personality, but he can also get serious when he puts his Tengu mask on and switches to his Mr. Karate persona. Plot twist, in SVC Chaos, he can get even seriouser and becomes one of the main bosses of the game, under a new form creatively titled Serious Mr. Karate. Here's a master that I think nobody would ever want to train under his supervision, yet somehow the number of his pupils stretches across two different series. I already mentioned him in Gang Il entry, but there is no way our favorite justice fanatic wouldn't have his own place in this list. Kim Kafwan is the Taekwondo master of SNK. His two sons Dongwan and Jaehoon are among the first students he had. Even after they grew up and became fearsome fighters on their own, they have immense respect for their father, and their faces still exhibit real terror whenever he's around. At some point, he also trained Jin Chonshu to help differentiate his fighting style from his brothers. In the KOF series, Kim's most famous victims, pupils, are the two criminals Chang and Choi, who he took the responsibility to rehabilitate even if it's the last thing he does in his life. Not content with that, he decided to tame two additional bad boys, Wajai and Raiden, during 13, even though the two men practiced totally different martial arts and had already turned the page on their criminal past. Finally, the last known character he trained is Mei Li, but unlike the previous students, she shares his view on justice and has no complaints about his unforgiving training methods. It's actually amazing how he managed to take in so many pupils considering that he is still relatively young. Kim is a living example of a student surpassing the master. I know that it may seem kinda surprising that the number one master of the KOF series is someone who is barely present in it, but hear me out for a second. Tang Furu is the embodiment of the old wise Chinese master stereotype. Under his guidance, characters from all generations thrived. First, there was the three brothers of godly battle, including Jeff Bogart, Cheng Xinzan, and Geese Howard. Next, it was the turn of Terry and Andy Bogart to train under the old master. After the crisis with the Jin brothers, he took Shunrei under his wing. And finally, the last students he had were Shunei and Mei Tenkun. Tang's strongest point is not the number of pupils he had, it's the way he trained them. You've probably already noticed that none of his students fight like the other, and they certainly don't fight like Tang himself. Tang doesn't teach moves and techniques, he sees what his disciple is strong at and trains them in a way that allows them to reach their own full potential. That's why each of his students has their own fighting style, and that's why Tang Furu is the best master in the KOF series. Which one of these characters would you choose as your martial art master? Share your answer with us in the comments. Special thanks to my generous patrons for their support. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, and why not consider subscribing to the channel. Thanks for watching.